Hey, Gabriel,
Hey, bro, Jose.
where are we today?
I'm in San Francisco, where it's reasonably warm.
Reasonably warm. And I'm in Chicago when it's reasonably winter. And we just leave it like that. And what if we was this time for keeping ourselves warm, in my case, and you like
Dark
equal
winter.
temperature? Yeah.
This was my pick, and I picked Weekend, the
Okay.
2011 film by Andrew Haigh.
Mhm.
Hi.
Why did you pick? Yeah. Why did you pick Weekend?
Because he directed 45 Years, that I love. I think it's a great film. But we also just watched The Strangers.
All of us are strangers. Yeah.
That's the one. That's the one. And as I recall, we had just become friends when this movie came out. Right?
Oh, it's 2011, and I'm in
You mean
2011.
2012?
Yeah, we met in 2012, probably.
Okay. So, but as I recall, we discussed this film, and we all often discuss how we feel, or maybe this is me.
That's you. Is that I didn't watch this film until 2016 or 17.
No, yeah. I'm just saying we at some point discussed this film.
Oh, yeah.
And the discussion around it is that gay stories in cinema tend to be not good or very stereotyped. And this film kind of broke out of that. We respected it as a gay film. And so we just wanted to remind ourselves that he is talented, even though he directed Strangers.
All of us are strangers. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's fair. So, as this was your pick, I guess that I have to summarize it. The movie takes place in London, like current day, like 2011 at that point, and it follows the weekend in a gay guy called Russell. Russell is like the main character.
Yeah, Russell and
Yeah, Glenn is the other one. Yeah. So Russell, we see him like just living in an apartment, going to his mate's party, like hanging with them. After that party, he goes to a gay bar. After deciding in the last second, instead of going home, I'm going to stop at this gay bar. And he ends up hooking up with a guy that they spend the night together. The rest of the movie follows like how the relationship evolves between them. And the twist over 2 days, yeah. And the twist is so Glenn goes to see him at his workplace, that he's a lifesaver in a public school. Yeah, lifeguard, sorry, in a public pool. And Glenn gives the twist that he is moving away to Portland. That I find hilarious that I remember that he was moving to Portland, not any other way. Yeah, not anywhere in the States. Portland, Oregon.
It would have just been so much more sense if he's like, yeah, I'm going to New York for a couple of years.
Yeah, but it's like Portland.
I'm going to the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, to Portland, not even like San Francisco. It's such a random destination, you know? I mean, there is nothing against Portland.
When he says, oh, I'm moving to Portland, it's in America.
Yeah. But yeah, basically, once that they know that, is that they have the feeling that it's like there is an inspiration for this thing that is happening here. So they open a lot to each other, and most of the movie is dialogue, like with each other, about like just showing the characters that they are and just opening in a way that they didn't open to other people. Glenn mentions and sex, a tiny bit of sex. And Glenn, mentions multiple times that he doesn't do boyfriends because he had like a terrible experience in the past. We see that Russell likes to keep memories of the guys that he hooks up with or that he cruises. There is like this reveal that I had forgotten, that I don't think that is like that important at the end of the day. But the movie closes, spoiler alert, with him like going away and Russell like having a romantic gesture of going to the station to just say goodbye, because Glenn is taking a direct train from London to Portland.
I don't think they were in. I think they were in like the suburbs of London.
I know.
Okay,
I know. But it's like when he goes there and there's like this romantic scene, it's like, oh, he's running through the station until he sees him. It felt like, yeah, this is what it would be like usual rom-com in the 90s but you're doing it at a train station instead of an airport. This feels like very low cost comparatively,
Yeah.
like the gesture.
I don't want people listening to think that they ran through the airport and had an embrace and made nothing about this is stereotypical.
No. I mean, they play with a bit of the expectation. So it's like, oh, there's going to be like these big gestures and he's going to be like leaving his plans behind for just staying with him. It's like, no, they behave in a realistic manner. It's like, he just says, it's like, hey, dude, I'm going. I'm not going to be like changing my plans or anything for this. It has been great. We can talk or whatever, but I'm moving on with my life.
They play with your expectations because when Russ meets Glenn's friends, they pull him aside and they're like, hey, he's probably not going to Portland. He decides on these things a lot, but he doesn't leave. And so you're like, oh, he's going to decide to stay, isn't he?
Yeah. Nope, he leaves. And you don't truly feel sad because at the end is that this is about just a weekend that probably it has influenced them as human beings,
You didn't feel sad at the end?
I didn't truly feel sad because I just felt like, hey, Glenn actually like carry on with something that probably was like the good thing for him to do. Is that just leaving things behind and just like grow as a human being. And Russell like connected with someone because the memories that he reads, that he writes, is that they're about like very fleeting connections with human beings just for sex. But we see him as a lonely person.
So I was devastated by the final. Well, there are two final scenes. There's the one you mentioned where he goes to the train station, and then there's a final scene in Russ's home where he has this big window that opens on the 14th floor at his apartment that the two spent a lot of time smoking weed at over the week, and they show him there alone, basically, which was devastating. I don't know how you weren't sad. I will call out that I had a very similar experience meeting my current husband. We had a very intense weekend of sex and connecting, and then he had to move 3,000 miles away.
Was it just after a weekend?
We spent we met and we spent 48 hours together nonstop, just constantly, and it was this super intense connection, and then there was all these complications. So I think this maybe resonated a little too close to home for me, and maybe that's why I was sadder than you were.
Maybe, but also my story, is like I had a short relationship before I moved to the States, and then it actually continued. But we had the same kind of conversation, even when we started dating about hey, I'm going to move away. So just letting you know.
Portland.
Not to Portland, to San Francisco. Exactly. But yeah, that's the summary. I mean, there are more stuff that happens, but I feel like this covers overall the topic. One thing that I think is Andrew Haigh, he's openly gay. He definitely has to have some daddy issues from the perspective. Yeah, because they both talk about hey, your father. This they acknowledge, and it's something that we also saw in All of Us Strangers. That is it's pretty important about coming out and actually having the respect and the approval of your father.
There's a scene in the film where they have very enthusiastic, passionate sex throughout, which was refreshing in 2011, where the sexual taboos were still coming down. This was kind of the first of its sort of gay film. But they just have sex, and Glenn says to Russ doesn't know his parents because he was abandoned. He says, well, I'll role play as your father and you come out to me. Not in a sexual way. It wasn't sexual at all. But I was like, it's sexual. It's sexual.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that it was that sexual. I think that it's truly Andrew Haigh is that's a personal thing. Because even, come on, a spoiler for All of Us Strangers is that it feels like the whole fucking leitmotif of the movie is about him having a chance of coming out to his father and being approved by him.
Helped me in that film.
But it's a similar thing. That's the only part of the film that look after watching All of Us Strangers is that I can see that this was something that he needs to put in his gay movies. But outside of that, is that he also treats the part about hey, as a gay person, is one of them is fairly lonely. The other one has friends, and Russell also has friends, but he's a lonely person.
He's unable to connect with those who want to connect with him. That's my opinion.
It may be that, but Glenn is not like that. Glenn is a bit more of the extroverted butterfly, that he has friends and he connects with them. He hates them too. I feel that he's like a bit over emotional and a bit like up and downs from that perspective. That's the reason why the friend says that is he may not be carrying with this, because every year he has like one new crazy plan that it never goes anywhere. But it's more about like how randomly you can connect with someone that is not really like your match. It's not because they are not that similar as human beings, but it's that they figured out like how to connect that chemistry that sparks, and they open completely. They get completely naked, not only from a sexual or physical perspective, but also about like human beings.
Yeah, I think the intimacy we saw it felt super authentic to me. It felt like something that can happen, and I feel like as gay men, these sorts I can't speak to straight people, but as a gay man, these sorts of experiences are somewhat common. Gay people don't commit as much as straight people, I think, and so the lifestyle just lends itself to this sort of experience. And they're super intense, lovely experiences, but they're also coupled with a lot of pain, unrequited love, and that was all portrayed very well in the film.
Yeah, and I was telling I was with my boyfriend, and I was telling that, dude, is that this feels authentic. This feels like 100% like the conversations. Okay, I mean, some of them may be a tiny bit stiff, but it's how these characters behave, and the characters that they are portraying, it feels 100% believable. And it feels like a gay movie, not about like, we changed it like a love relationship that it can be straight. And it's like, no, because the core part is that some of these relationships, even if it was not moving to Portland, is that some of these relationships last a weekend of this kind of intensity and they evaporate and you move on with your life, as you were saying. And this is something that I prefer to hear about. It feels deeper than actually it's like, hey, they're gay and they're being discriminated, or hey, they're gay and they get AIDS. It feels like this is closer to what thankfully the gay relation, the gay reality that we have in nowadays.
Although it's interesting that, let me ask you this. I feel like the climate that is expressed in this film in England in 2010, 2011 is about 10, 20 years behind what it was in America.
You think?
I'm asking because in 2011 they weren't having these nonstop conversations about being discriminated against by straight people and being called faggot in the street like that. That was.
Well, one thing is that it's not London. Now I remember, I actually checked it out, and it's like a place that is 1 hour northwest from London. It's a village. Yeah,
that makes sense.
It's not a big city, That's the first thing. And the second thing is I had the feeling that where he lives is not like the fanciest part of the city. Is that tower of apartments is like, it feels like those teenagers that they're out there is like, this is not like a dangerous area, but it's not a nice, fancy area. So those teenagers,
color sort of.
Yeah. So look, if they're going to be like colorful calling it that, what I like is that Glenn answers. He's like, I'm going to fuck your orifice or something like he says.
I'm going to rape your holes, is what he says.
Sorry, I didn't capture all the richness in his dialogue. But no, I don't really feel, because it's like if you were only even like to compare about like, hey, let's go to, I don't know, from Chicago to, I don't know, like Milwaukee. It's like, probably Milwaukee is not the same experience as here. And if I go to a rougher place, it would be like a bit harder, around the edges. And the same thing, like if you go to San Jose, is that probably still going to be like welcoming, but you may have a couple of looks. Probably you are like holding hands with the guy.
My husband and me holding hands in San Jose.
Yeah. So, sorry, what were you gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say it's interesting. This film sits kind of between two periods of time for gay people, where it wasn't about AIDS, although they do talk about like being terrified they'd be labeled as trash if they were to get AIDS through anal sex, and Glenn constantly complains about straight people keeping gay people down, which is less so much a theme now in gay stories than it was 12 years ago, 13 years ago.
That's fair, but also at the same time, they don't make it the center of the story. They just acknowledge of this happening, but we don't see like straight people like keeping them down or just being discriminated by them.
I agree, but this time around, while I still think Weekend is a great film, and I say great, not good, it's a great film, I felt this time around that Glenn was one of the most poorly written characters I've seen in an Andrew Haigh film. He was so obnoxious, so stereotypical, the artist that suffers because straight people won't want to see his art because it's about gay sex. Yeah, nobody wants to go see art about gay sex. That's just, nobody wants to go see art about he was such a
I actually thought that it's like, hey, this is a guy in his late 20s, early 30s, probably, I don't know like the age, I don't know if they even like mentioned the age, but it's like he's trying to figure himself out. It's like he's going to be like just like being a bit pretentious in some stuff, but I don't see him like inherently stupid character, you know, or useless or poorly written. I just felt like, hey, this guy is definitely someone that if I were to talk, and I think that even Russ mentions it, there is like at the beginning when he says it is like, oh, is this for an art thing? He almost like rolls his eyes, or like, this is pretty fucking dumb, until they talk like a bit more about it. And when he explained it, when they are like in the kitchen table, is that, hey, maybe you don't see the artistic value on it, but at least the character is written with this character has a passion for it and he can articulate that passion. You may think that it's stupid because it's pretty stupid, but it still is written in a way that I feel like consistent with how a person like that would behave.
Well, and that's what I was going to say is I don't know if I just hated this person or he was poorly written. It felt like he was poorly written because he just kept repeating the same things over and over. Like the conversation when he's like, gay people shouldn't get married. Why should they feed into the system? And actually, Russ calls him out and says, you just sound like a teenager at this point. And I was like, yeah, you sound like a stupid teenager.
Well, but I think that that's part of it, is what I was telling you. Like he's trying to figure himself out. He's like pretty opinionated and he thinks that he knows absolutely everything, you know? And it's like, he has gone through this like for a very long time. That's the reason why they sing with the friends. That is a bit of you need to be like the center of attention and you're having this plan, but not even your friends really trust you. And they call you out and that's the reason why you hate them, when probably they know you better than you know yourself. So I think that they are complex characters, you know, like complex, like I don't think that they are stereotypes like boys in the band, you know. I think that they are like more complex gay characters.
It's a common gay archetype that exists in the real world.
Correct. Yeah. So from my perspective, I just felt it's like for 2011, this is amazingly good. It's like, this is like, at this point, when you have a gay character, it's like because they're going to be like discriminated, you know, and we're going to be like seeing their tragedy like Brokeback Mountain, or they are like just a comedic sidekick that the only trait about them is that they are gay, and that's it, you know. So I felt it's like, hey, these are complex characters, like properly written, that you may like more or less, because for me, Russ, I just wanted to punch him in the face.
That guy. Oh, you wanted to punch Russ?
Yeah, I wanted to punch Russ. It's about like, dude, is that you're just a moody emo kid. It's that just like try to develop some emotion. You have like people around you that they love you. It's that just be alive.
I thought you would find his shyness and his insecurity endearing.
I didn't. Because I didn't see. The thing is like I disliked him a bit more because he made me think of All of Us a Stranger, of the main character, Andrew, whatever. That is you're also moody, sad, you know, but I don't know if you really have a reason for being like that. And in this case, I feel like you have less of a reason. It's that you have friends, you have like a job that you may like more or less, but it's more like you are in your head about like, I need to be sad and disconnected.
Yeah, I can see Russ being the same character as whatever his name is in Strangers, 100%.
Yeah. That's like the only thing that after watching All of Us Strangers, watching this, I just feel is like, hey, Weekend is way better. It feels like way more authentic and more to the point and more something that I can relate as a gay person.
It's interesting because I think, and the director's voice is an important gay voice, and I rarely say that about anybody, but I find it interesting that I found his strongest film to be about a straight senior couple in 45 years that are in their 70s. And it's almost like pulling him out of his personal issues that he has around being gay and, you know, not having the approval of his father, that makes him a stronger filmmaker, in my opinion.
That's so interesting. So you think that 45 Years is a more important film?
No, because it's just another film about straight couples, but I think it's a better film. Weekend is more important, for sure. It's kind of like a milestone in gay cinema, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I think that it actually is a mainstream movie that displays that you can make a compelling story that doesn't fall into the tropes that we know, the cliches that we know of gay cinema. Let's go over the questions, because I think I was checking the score and I remember like walking away from 45 Years and it's like, it is like one more straight couple movie that didn't land as well with me as it did with you. But let's go over the questions for Weekend. Would you watch it again?
Just as a reminder, you didn't even catch that in 45 Years the woman who died was pregnant. So I just want to call that out. So maybe you can't quite capture the whole intended message from 45 Years.
Okay, I mean, I think that we discussed it back then, and I still like scored it what I scored it, you know. And we're not talking about 45 years. Let's just like put it, you know. Yeah. Let's just spin that. Would you watch Weekend again?
Yeah, I'll rewatch this several times.
Yeah, me too. I just feel like it's a pretty easy to rewatch movie. Would you recommend it?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that is like a movie that I would recommend to straight people if they tell me it's like, oh, you know, all gay movies are like blah blah blah. It's like, watch Weekend.
I have to say that I watched this movie on Tubi, Tubi, and I've never watched a movie on it before. And it had commercials, but it wasn't bad. But the second it ended, it tried to get me to watch another movie. It just started another movie, and that movie was God's Own Country.
Okay.
Like,
because I was going to say, if they tell me, it's like, oh, I already watched Weekend, it's like, let's watch God's Own Country. Because it's a bit harder. It's not like an urban setting or anything, but it's not about like the tragedy of being gay in a rural setting. It's not Brokeback Mountain. It's a bit more about like, hey, the tragedy of the main character is a bit of a asshole, you know, but he can actually just pulling a dick in front of the camera, you know, he can actually just grow as a human being. That is what we see here. Yeah. Would you remember Weekend? I
mean, the summary of the movie is in the title, so probably. I'm not going to remember the specifics. There were so many things that I was pleasantly surprised about I had forgotten. So I don't know how to. Yes, like the very basic plot. Yes, I'll remember he moves to Portland, but what happens in the weekend, I will not remember.
Yeah, if you go with Jess, I go with Jess from the same perspective. That is like, I remember that they meet up at a bar. He's going to be like moving to Portland. They have like this intense weekend, like living together, and that's it. And then he moves to Portland.
So we decided on yes.
Yes, we're deciding on yes. Yeah. Is there anything artistic about it?
Yes. So was this his first film? Now I'm doubting myself after I gave you all the wrong information about a different movie.
Let me just check.
I'm pretty sure this was his first film, and it's astonishing from a first-time director.
I could say no. He directed something. He directed Greek Pete first, and then he directed this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I think the direction is incredible. I think the acting was more or less good. And the story is exceptional. The writing, I think, was really great. Besides fucking Glenn.
Yeah. I say yes, exactly for the reason of the screenplay. I just feel like hey, this is a very, very solid script. It's like it's funny how we say from time to time is that, like the screenplay was good or not, but there are not so many movies that they hold their ground because of how good the script is. And I think that this is one of them. Is that the acting is good. I'm not going to deny it. The filming is also good. It's decently shot, but I think that is like the script is what sustained this movie for just being what it is.
And I wanted to bring this up. So I think the scale of the film is perfect for the story that it's trying to tell. Yeah. But I am blown away. They filmed this in 2 weeks.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I read that today and I was like, whoa, that's impressive.
Yeah. Well, probably like the guys had like really good chemistry, because at the end is that they are in front of the camera most of the time. They are in the apartment, so there are very few scenes that there is outside. So as long as they were like good working with each other, is that probably they made this happen like in no time. Is it a timeless piece?
Oh, this one's tough because, like I said, I feel like some of the conversations are extremely dated at this point. Just in terms of what we're dealing with as gay people today, it feels stuck in a moment in time that it just doesn't exist anymore. But that universal gay experience where you just fall in love in a weekend and end up heartbroken, that's universal? I don't know. Yeah. I'll say yes, I guess.
I will go with yes too, because I even think that is this concept like AIDS, is that they don't have the same weight nowadays as they had 13 years ago, but it's still like a stigma. There is still like just several stigmas like in our gay society that they may not be the same like from 13 years ago, but they're still present to some extent.
This is going to sound like a joke, but when we read the journal entry from Russ, when he talks about how he was fucked for the first time and he was terrified about getting AIDS, my heart broke for this 2010 character who didn't have access to PrEP. And I thought, how different would his anxieties be if he just had access to what we have access to today? It blew my mind. It was super impactful.
Yeah. That part is what you say, is that because of these chains, it's some other stuff like chains along the way, is that we wouldn't be like talking about that. But it's what I tell you is that there is another set of stigmas like for us. There is always going to be, we as a community, like a community, we tend to be like very judgmental about like a specific set of things. That is that they're going to be like, if you actually meet up on this, is that randomly it can be like through an app or in a bar or whatever, is that there is going to be stuff that you are like really opinionated and you consider like a stigma about like being gay or a risk of being gay. So, and come on, let's not lie ourselves, it's like still like gay people may look down on us if we were not in a big city.
Well, I was just going to say, I think we both speak from a position of privilege, being in very large cities that have large gay populations and a lot of not tolerance, but acceptance. So I would feel differently if I was still living in Salt Lake, 100%.
Yep. I mean, I even feel it when I go back to Spain, I become self-conscious. It's like in Madrid, 99% fine, but it's like if I go to my home area, it's like, these are decent sized cities and I know that I still can get like some looks when I'm with my boyfriend there. Would you turn Weekend into a TV show?
I wouldn't touch this. I think the size is perfect. This was meant to be a film. This was not meant to be a 1 episode a week experience.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is like something that is so, how do you say, like properly boxed, like the scope is the right one. That is just making it longer, it would actually dilute like the intensity of these 3 days that they spent together. And now on the other end, could this have been a short?
Honestly, I think this could be a kick-ass short. It really could. Like a super tight 20 minutes before a Sundance feature film, and I would have been like, what the fuck did I just see? That's amazing. I don't want it to be. In fact, this is a rare film where I wanted it to be longer because I was like, I just want to stay in this moment a little bit longer with these characters. And it's an hour and 37. It's not super short, but it's not long. But yeah, this could have been as impactful emotionally in 45 minutes, I think.
Yeah, I am going to go with no. I'm going to go with no from the perspective that what I like of this movie is like just the gradual opening of these two people. And I had the feeling that if we do it in a sort, it's like that gradual intensity is going to get lost. We are not going to be like seeing this transformation from this guy that doesn't connect with other human beings, and this guy that is like the only way that he knows how to react to other human beings is like running from them, albeit he wants to connect with them. Is like how they actually connect with each other and just open and get naked. And I feel like making it a rush of, turning it into a rush sort of 20, 40 minutes or even an hour, I just feel like it could be killing. Like, for me, what is the value of this movie?
I see your point, 100%.
Yeah. Do you think that this movie could have been better?
Honestly, from my 2024 perspective, I would have rewritten Glenn a little bit. Yes, I'm just going to admit it. I think that character could have been improved. Yes, and that's my only complaint.
No, that's fair. I'm going to go with no. You know, even if it's like a moment in time, I still feel like the characters are heartfelt. And even if Glenn is a bit hateful by nowadays standard, I think that they are kids like that they feel that they know everything and it's just the world around them that they don't understand them. So, my take, but I completely respect and see your point of rewriting him. Should we? There is one line that I was going to be asking you. I mean, it was this like more than a week ago, but I wanted to ask you about a point when they say that when Russ is in the pool, you know, in the breaking room, and one of the guys that is eating there, he's talking about sex, you know, like a pretty like descriptive way, you know, and then they are talking like Glenn and Russ says, oh, this guy was talking about sex like that, like openly. And I think that Glenn says something like, oh yeah, straight people do that all the time. And me and my boyfriend look at each other, it's like, okay, people do it way much more. It's a bit insane sometimes, like how much we can talk about sex openly.
I would agree. I think gay people talk about sex way more. But I think what he was maybe trying to say is that straight men talk to other straight men about sex, which is different than saying straight people talk about sex all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's like men and women, they don't talk. You don't go like to a dinner party like with other straight couples and you start talking about sex in that kind of descriptive way. But a dinner party only with gay guys or gay guys and women is that could be a pretty different story.
Yeah, I agree. Gay men talk about sex way more than
Yeah, that was like the only point that I was like, wait, what reality? But it's like, you may be right. It may be like just like talking about like gay men with gay men or like straight men with straight women. They wouldn't be like talking about sex. That would be like a bit more of a taboo of, hey, no, we don't discuss these things. Should we score this movie?
We should. This was your pick, or my pick, so you have to go first.
A bit torn. I'm going to go with an 8.5.
So the entire conversation I was going between 8 and 8.5. I'm going with an 8.5 as well because, as we talked about, this is an important gay film.
Yeah, and there are not too many of those.
Nope. And if there are, they're directed by straight Asians. So.
But once again, that's about discrimination and just like fear of being gay.
Yeah, but also that was so. If you justify the conversations about Glenn happening in 2010 when this was filmed, because that's what they were experiencing at the time, you cannot deny that to Brokeback Mountain, where that is what gay men.
Sure, dude, but it's like we go back again to the point about like, yeah, those stories are true, but it's like, do I, as a gay person, want to see like that movie nowadays? It's like I'm a bit tired of those movies. It's like, yeah, there was a reality like that back then, and maybe in some deep America like parts, but I also want movies that I can relate by nowadays standards, you know, to them. And I don't relate to cowboys fucking in the wild in the beginning of the 1940 or 1960.
I get it. We need stories that aren't tied to our suffering. 100%.
Yes. So as this was your pick, I think that I had to pick Nest. And as the Oscar nominations came out, probably when this episode goes out, it's like maybe already the Oscar award ceremony already happened, because I think that is like early March. But we're going to be. I realized that we watched like many of the nominated movies. Or at least I had the feeling that we did this year.
I think definitely more than last year, for sure.
Yes, yes.
But weirdly, not because we were trying to watch the Oscar-nominated films. We were just going to movies more, I think, in cinemas.
Yeah. This year, yeah, we did. But I also think that probably it was a better year for cinema than last year. I think there were like several movies that we say like, this is pretty freaking good. You know, like Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, Oppenheimer, Poor Things. These are good movies.
Just a note on Anatomy of a Fall. You know the lecture, she's like, you are not generous. Your generousness hides something disgusting inside you.
Like the conversation between the two of them? Yeah.
People on TikTok are using that audio to do the funniest shit where they're just like degrading their partners, and I love it. I'll send one to you.
Great. I like that you are my connection with modern social media.
Young, Jose.
I can see that. But yeah, like on that vein, we're going to be watching American Fiction.
All right. I love that main actor. What's his name?
Jeffrey.
He's so fucking good.
Yeah.
Jeffrey. It's not Rush. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. But yeah, let's hold that for the next week. Anything else to say about Weekend?
Just go see it. Any complaints that I had or you had are very minor. This is a great film. Go see it. Whether you're gay or straight, it's a good film.
Yeah, definitely. And to all of them, besides go watch it, thank you so much for putting up with us. And
until next time.
Bye.